Have you ever felt like a part of your soul resides in another person, a bond so deep that neither time nor distance can break it? What would you do if fate offered you a second chance, no matter how painful or complicated it seemed, to reunite with that lost piece of your heart? Tell me, from what corner of the world are you listening to us today? And if you've ever faced a decision that seemed to tear your very being apart, prepare yourselves, because the story you're about to hear is a whirlwind of emotions that will take you from the misty mountains of Yunnan to the vibrant city of San Francisco, a journey that explores the limits of maternal love and the true essence of family. Almost 17 years ago, in the remote province of Yunnan, where clouds caress the mountaintops and rice paddies stretch out like an emerald blanket, a young woman named Mei Lin made the most heartbreaking decision of her life. The sun was just beginning to break, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, but an impenetrable darkness reigned in Mei Lin's heart. In her arms, wrapped in the only silk blanket she owned, a gift from her own mother, slept her little Anna, her treasure of just a few months. Famine had struck the village with relentless cruelty that year, and her husband, a strong and hard-working man, had succumbed to an illness that no local remedy could cure. Mei Lin found herself alone, without support, and with the terrifying certainty that she could offer her daughter nothing more than a life of misery and hunger. Can a mother be judged for wanting a better future for her daughter, even if that future means being separated from her? What would you have done in her place? With her soul shattered and tears burning her cheeks, she walked for hours to the nearest city, to the cold doors of an orphanage. Every step was torture, every breath a silent lament. She left Anna in a basket, along with a small jade figurine, a dragon symbolizing strength and good fortune, and a clumsily written note, imploring them to take care of her little light. "I will find you, my little flower," she whispered to the wind, a promise that would cling to her soul for the next 15 years. Not a single day passed that Mei Lin didn't relive that moment. The smell of the cold morning air, her baby's muffled cry as she walked away, the echo of her own footsteps on the cobblestone street. She worked tirelessly, first in the tea fields, then in a factory in distant Shenzhen, saving every yuan, with the sole hope of one day being able to search for the daughter circumstances had forced her to abandon. Guilt was a constant shadow, but hope, stubborn and resilient, refused to die. Meanwhile, on the other side of the vast Pacific Ocean, in the bustling and cosmopolitan city of San Francisco, Sarah and David Miller felt their lives were complete. Years of longing and unsuccessful fertility treatments had led them down the path of adoption. And there, in a catalog full of hopeful little faces, they found Anna, whom they renamed Lily. To them, Lily was a miracle, the answer to all their prayers. She grew up in a home filled with laughter, books, hugs, and opportunities. She was a bright, curious, and compassionate child, with the dark, straight hair of her Chinese heritage and vivacious eyes that reflected the joy of her American upbringing. Lily excelled in school, loved to paint, play the violin, and dreamed of becoming an architect to design bridges, perhaps unconsciously intuiting her own role as a bridge between two worlds. She was completely unaware of Mei Lin's existence, the story of her birth, the sacrifice that had marked her first months of life. How might the revelation of such a fundamental and unknown past impact a teenager? Is it possible to love two families with the same intensity? The Millers and Lily's life proceeded with the peaceful normality of a united family, until one day, 15 years after the adoption, a letter arrived. A letter with Chinese stamps, written in Mandarin that Sarah and David had to have translated. It was from Mei Lin. With the help of an organization that reunited separated families and the few details she remembered from the orphanage, she had managed to track down Anna. The letter was a torrent of raw emotions: pain, regret, longing, and a request that resonated in the Miller's home like a thunderclap. Mei Lin wanted her daughter back. "She is my blood, my only family," Mei Lin wrote. "And now that I have the means, however modest, to care for her, I demand she be returned to me. I know you have loved her, but her place is with me, in her homeland." The Millers' world fell apart. Fear gripped them, a visceral fear of losing the daughter they had raised and loved as their own. Lily, upon learning the news, felt as if the ground had opened up beneath her feet. Confusion, anger, a strange curiosity, and a deep sadness washed over her. Who was she really? Lily Miller, the American girl, or Na, the lost daughter of an unknown Chinese woman. The nights filled with whispered conversations, tears, and a tension that threatened to shatter the foundations of their home. Could a demand, born from a biological mother's desperation, truly undo 15 years of love and shared life? What weight does blood hold compared to upbringing? We'd love to read your reflections in the comments. Details of Mei Lin's life began to emerge, painting a picture of struggle and perseverance. She had saved for years, living on the bare essentials, clinging to a faded photograph of her baby. The village she had left behind was still poor, but she had managed to set up a small stall selling traditional embroidery, the sales from which, added to her savings, now allowed her to dream of bringing Na back. She imagined her daughter by her side, learning the customs of her ancestors, speaking her mother tongue, feeling the embrace of the land where she was born. She didn't fully grasp the depth of the bonds Lily had formed in America. In her mind, the blood tie was supreme, unquestionable. For Lily, each revelation was like a piece of a puzzle she didn't know was incomplete. She began to research China, Yunnan, the policies that might have led to her abandonment. She saw photos of landscapes that felt strangely familiar, heard music that struck a chord deep inside her. The conflict consumed her. She loved Sarah and David with all her being. They were her parents in every way that mattered. But a part of her felt an undeniable connection to this unknown woman on the other side of the world, a woman who had suffered so much for her. Is it possible to reconcile two such different identities, two such distant worlds? The suspense grew when Mei Lin, impatient and with the help of a benefactor moved by her story, announced she would travel to San Francisco. The initial demand, expressed in the letter, would materialize into a face-to-face meeting. The Millers, though terrified, knew they couldn't deny Lily the opportunity to meet her biological mother, nor Mei Lin the right to see the daughter she had fought so hard for. They prepared for the worst, imagining legal battles, tears, and an impossible decision for Lily. The tension was palpable, like a rope about to snap. What would happen when these two mothers, united and separated by the same child, finally met? The day Mei Lin arrived at the San Francisco airport, the air was thick with restrained emotion. She was a petite woman, her face lined by work and time, but with eyes that shone with fierce determination and immense love. When she saw Lily, waiting with Sarah and David, her legs grew weak. She was the spitting image of her late husband, but with the sweetness of her own youth. Words failed her. There was only a choked sob, a sound that carried 15 years of pain and hope. Lily, for her part, saw in Mei Lin not a stranger coming to claim her, but a woman with a deep sadness and a palpable longing. The following days were a delicate dance of emotions. There were difficult conversations, translated by an interpreter, where Mei Lin recounted in detail the reasons for her decision, the poverty, the desperation, the unwavering love that drove her to search. She showed Lily the small jade dragon figurine, the only tangible link to her past. Lily listened, processed, cried. Sarah and David, with admirable generosity of spirit, opened their home and hearts, allowing this meeting to unfold, understanding that loving Lily also meant respecting her entire story. They saw the suffering in Mei Lin's eyes and understood that her demand was not born of malice, but of a deep maternal love and a cultural perspective where blood ties carry a different weight. Gradually, the tension began to dissipate, replaced by an incipient understanding. Mei Lin saw Lily's life, her happy home, her friends, her dreams, the unconditional love of Sarah and David. She understood that tearing Lily away from that environment would cause her immense pain, in a way repeating the trauma of separation. The demand transformed into a silent plea to be part of Lily's life, to have a place in her heart. Lily, in turn, began to see beyond her own confusion. She saw Mei Lin's courage, her persistent love. She understood the sacrifices both mothers had made for her. The solution wasn't a return to China, nor was it slamming the door on Mei Lin. It was something much more complex and beautiful. Lily didn't have to choose. She decided to expand her heart. "I don't have one mother, I have two," she said one day, with a serenity that astonished everyone. It was agreed that Mei Lin would spend time in San Francisco, getting to know Lily, teaching her about her culture, her language. And in the future, Lily would travel to Yunnan, not to stay, but to connect with her roots, to know the land of her ancestors, to understand where she came from. The end of this story isn't a perfect, bow-tied conclusion, but the beginning of a new chapter. One filled with challenges, yes, but also with unexpected richness. Mei Lin returned to China, not empty-handed, but with a heart full of new hopes and the promise of frequent video calls and future visits. She carried with her photos of Lily, drawings Lily had made for her, and the certainty that her Na was well loved, and that, somehow, she had recovered a piece of her soul. Sarah and David found a new dimension to their family, a connection to a distant culture, and a profound admiration for the resilience of the human spirit. And Lily, or Na, as she also began to call herself in the privacy of her thoughts, discovered that her identity was not one or the other, but the sum of both. She was a bridge between two worlds, two cultures, two maternal loves. Her life had become infinitely more complex, but also infinitely richer. She learned that family isn't always defined by blood or law, but by the unbreakable bonds of love, sacrifice, and understanding. This story, dear listeners, reminds us that love takes many forms and that sometimes, the hardest trials lead us to the most inspiring destinations. Catharsis came not with a victory or a loss, but with acceptance and the expansion of the heart. It teaches us that hope can flourish even in the most painful circumstances, and that true family is one that chooses to love, regardless of distance or differences. What did you think of the path these three brave souls chose? Do you believe that love can, indeed, multiply instead of divide? Leave us your thoughts, your own stories of connection and hope. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that move and inspire. Here on Souls of China.